This is really my first time ever doing any kind of mortar, any kind of brick. So if I can do it, and if it turns out all right, then you guys can do it too. All right, we went ahead, we mocked this thing up, we dry stacked all of our bricks, we got our layout how we wanted. I broke it all back down, I got all my blocks laid out where I want it. I've already mixed up a little bit of mortar mix here, and I've done the back row back there just as a trial to see if I can get it down before I brought you guys along on the video and show you what I was doing and didn't want to look like a complete idiot. Okay, we got our stand built. I do have a stack of blocks here in the middle to help support the middle, and we haven't cemented any of that in yet, but whenever I measured it, it sits about a ½ inch lower than the rest of the stand, and that's because we mortared the joints on the stand, but I haven't mortared the joints in the center. So I figured that helps work out whenever I lay my Durock concrete sheets up here, that it can sit on this and come over to the blocks. I think that's going to work out for me. All right, now the next thing that we got to do is we're going to build a nice little arch over the front of our fireplace portion, and I figure out how are we going to draw that semicircle arch area to where it's consistent and it looks good. So I took my measurement here, and in between my fireplace I'm looking at exactly 39 inches. And from my previous concrete projects, I had a piece of leftover melamine, and concrete and epoxy and stuff like that, it doesn't stick to melamine very well, especially if you wax it. So I pulled this out, I squared it up to 39 inches, and I figured on the sides here up, I want at least a 12-inch arch. I want 4 inches right across the dead center, and I'm going to put rebar in that whenever I cast the concrete, that I got 4 inches of concrete and rebar in there so that it can support itself. Now, how to build the arch. I took a spare piece of cardboard that I had. I laid it up here. I found halfway, which is 19.5 inches. So on my cardboard, I came over 19.5 inches. Figured up 12 inches, puts me up here. I want to leave 4 inches at the top for the rebar and the concrete. So I've got 8 inches of opening that I need to form the arch. Well, I had some old irrigation tubing. Now let me get this irrigation tubing out. And the irrigation tubing already wants to have a natural bend to it. So I'm going to lay that at one corner, come over to my 8-inch mark, and then take my pencil and I draw a half an arch. Now I'm going to cut that out. When I have a half a circle here and I cut that arch out, I'm going to flip that over and I'm going to get my other half of the arch. I'll transfer that over to my melamine, take the jigsaw and cut that out, and then boom, I've got my template. Okay, we got the form cut for the curve and the lintel. Decided we're going to cast it in concrete. So what I did is I went to my local big box store, the blue one, and I bought a masonry drill bit, 1/2 inch. And that's so that I could put a 1/2 inch, 4-foot long piece of rebar into these blocks. So if you want to come up here and look, I split the difference. I got 4 inches of, from the top of my form to the top of this curve is 4 inches. So I went 2 inches down, came over and centered up right there on my block, drilled a 2-inch hole. I ran my rebar in that way and I ran my rebar in that way. Now, none of this down here is screwed in. It's just kind of all propped up. And it's just that curve that I cut out of that melamine, and it's going to kind of hold that bottom of that form straight when I pour this concrete in here. Now, I sat around for several days wondering, what can I put in this curve that will hold flush? I couldn't use plywood. I didn't have any of the bendy plywood that I could screw up in there. What I did have was just too stiff and it wouldn't take the curve. So I went and I bought a roll of flashing. I marked out 6.5 inches, that's 4 inches, and then 1.5 inches for the 2 3/4 inch pieces of melamine. I laid down here on the edge of the flashing, took my X-Acto knife and ran it right down the middle. I scored myself a line. Took my 10 snips, I cut that out. So I have a 6.5 inch piece of flashing, and then along this radius, I just screwed it in. So if you want to get the camera down here and show all the screws that I've got put in in the radius right there. Can you get that? Okay, so we got it all set up, and I think we're ready to start doing some pouring. So we're going